have a little surprise for you. Well, we at Robbins, we like to mix it up a little bit. And last year I did a whole lot of talking. And I thought, oh, we don't want to go there again. So this year, absolutely. But I'm still going to talk, just give me enough time. But I thought this year it would be kind of fun if we had a guest speaker. So Heidi and I did some searching, and it is my pleasure to introduce Mark Altman, who is the founder and CEO of Westboro-based Mindset. Mindset is a leading company in training and coaching professionals to be more confident and effective communicators. With over 2 decades of teaching communication skills, sales, he empowers individuals to maximize their potential to be more successful personally. A native of Boston, Mark has the distinction of also being a freelance sports reporter for the Associated Press, covering the home games for the Boston Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Bruins. Kind of fun, huh? Would you please welcome Mark Altman.
Hi everybody. Looking forward to talking with you all tonight. I'd like to start out with a little story. First, one thing I'll tell you about myself is I've been in sales from 45 years old. I've been in sales for 43 years. Running joke there is whenever people talk about sales, I always say, you're the first time you're 2 years old and you try to convince your parents of something, you're in sales. So I was talking to a woman. One of the things my company does is we work with high school and college and millennial age kids and helping them be able to integrate into the workplace. So I was talking to a woman who owns a company that does helps high school kids navigate the college experience and getting into college and test prep and essays, etc. So she said, what do you do? Tell me what your company does. And I told her, and I said, we're trying to help kids know what makes them stand out, what makes them differentiate themselves. And I was telling her the whole thing, and she looks at me and she goes, I gotta be honest with you, I don't really like what you do. And I said, why? And she goes, it sounds like you're trying to turn all these kids into salespeople. And I said, yes, that's exactly right. So, I start out with that story because I think of that word sales and what a dirty word it is in our society and how everybody associates it. Think of all of you who are in this industry when people walk into Brockman's and you walk towards them and they're like, and you can see the look and the disdain of, oh, here they come, who's they? So for me, I look at a salesperson, and the analogy both of my brothers are in the medical profession. I always say to them, I say, there is not a harder job in the world than sales. Because if you are a surgeon and you're in the operating room and your patient dies, you go home and that paycheck's still sitting in the mailbox. Maybe not anymore these days, maybe it's direct deposit. So in any event, but that's it with sales. I mean, especially when you're in a commission sales opportunity like you are here at Robbins, it's tough. You've got to be at your best. And when I look at the skills salespeople have, to me, they're cream of the crop. You've got salespeople who are self-motivated. You've got salespeople that have the characteristics of public speaking. I mean, you're public speakers. You're meeting with people all the time and having to present yourselves. There's confidence. There's belief in yourself. In our line of profession, when you take all the characteristics a successful salesperson has to have, there aren't many professions that are required to have the skill set that you do. So before I go any further tonight, I figure for the kind of year you all had, how about we give all the salespeople a round of applause for having a great year. I also, before I want to go any further, I want to thank Bernie, Barry, Steve, Barbara, Heidi for bringing me tonight. Really enjoy this. One thing I want to tell you is I'm at a point in my life where I do this because I love it, not because I've had to do it. I've had some good fortune, and I really think in sales you have to have a differentiator Rotman's has to have a differentiator as a company, at least one. You all have to have a differentiator when customers come into the store. And my differentiator, and we're going to talk about this briefly tonight, is passion. Passion for what I do. I feel like it's rare when you have a profession where you can wake up every morning and really love what you do, and I think that's essential to being successful in your job. So that is my differentiator. A little bit of my background is I had kids very young. I have a 21-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter, and that's relevant in the story because at a very early point in my life I wanted to go into sports broadcasting. I was living out in California, was earmarked to have my own sports talk show. I worked for what would be the Comcast parallel for the Los Angeles sports teams. And I had kids really young, so it kind of changed the course of my life. And at that point, I knew I always loved people. And I was joking with Steve earlier because my first recognition of my love of people and sales is I was 13 years old, and I had a newspaper route. And for those of you who remember what a newspaper route is. And what was funny about delivering newspapers, it was the craziest thing. I would go up to the door and you give good service and you're nice to people and they give you a tip. And the nicer you are and the better service you are, you get more money. And it seemed like such a simple, fascinating concept to me. I'm like, I like this. So anyway, so that was where my love of people and sales started, and then went to college and got a job selling the Los Angeles Times door to door. Now I don't know if anybody ever tried to sell newspapers door to door. That was a hard job. But just continued my love of people, and then at 29 years old, I started a company called Mark Altman Associates. That company worked with government utilities. We did billing services, online billing, print mail. And while I had that company, I had it for 11 years, and started the company in the bedroom of my home printing tax bills for the city of Woburn, town of Manchester, and town of Hudson, Massachusetts. And to keep costs down as an entrepreneur, I would buy the printer, I would buy the toner, get all the forms, and then when the quarter was over and I printed all the real estate tax bills, I would return the printer's statements to keep the cost down. And so it was and I'm telling you this story because I feel like we're all entrepreneurs. I feel like when you're in sales, you're an entrepreneur. So in any event, I grew the company, was eventually able to move out of my home after 6 years, moved to an office building, acquired a company, expanded to a 30,000 square foot facility, which in Rotman's terms is very small, I get that, but for me that was a great thing. And so at that time, everything was going great. And then in 2009, I was feeling my oats, I was getting very complacent and overconfident, and I decided to open up an office in California. And one of the things I pride myself on professionally is due diligence. And that was one of the very few times in my life I did not do due diligence. And as a result of that decision, it was a horrendous mistake, cost my company $400,000, and almost went on the verge of bankruptcy. And at that time, I was the lone salesperson for this company. And at that time, I had to make a decision. I had to take out another mortgage on my home, or I put my head down and start selling and do what I do best. And so I did that. And within 2 years of having that happen, we became one of Inc. 500,000's fastest growing companies in the country in successful years. We grew into a multi-million-dollar company. I was able to sell the company in 2011, and I literally went from rock bottom to the top. And let's face it, as an entrepreneur, I mean, that's ultimately what you're trying to do in most cases, is try to set yourself up for sale. So, sold the company in 2011. 2 years later, I had to fulfill an obligation to the company I sold to. In 2013, I started Mindset Go. And the premise of Mindset Go was how I believe, and this is what I want to focus on tonight, I believe that growth mindset, the term growth mindset, is essential to personal and professional success. And who in here, before I go any further, if you're comfortable enough to raise your hand, who in here uses mindfulness techniques in their personal and professional life? Okay, so the term mindfulness techniques is very foreign and it feels a little, I can't think of a better way to say this, maybe earthy, crunchy to people. So, but the term mindfulness techniques, I bet most of you in the room do use mindfulness techniques and you don't realize it. An example of a mindfulness technique is to set a reminder in your phone. Anybody set reminders in their phone for anything? That's a mindfulness technique. And the way I think salespeople can use mindfulness techniques very effectively is when you hit those ruts. You know, I talked to Barbara on the phone about a little bit about the challenges you face. And one of the things she told me was that downtime when you're in the store and you're waiting for the customer to come in, and how the emotion drops and the energy drops, and how you raise that level when you need it. And how do you, at the end of the day, when you're really struggling, how do you find out to not be down and get in that rut? And mindfulness techniques could be as simple as saying a word to yourself in your inner voice. And as silly as it might sound, it's incredibly important. Last night, I was at Jerry Seinfeld. He was performing at the Hanover Theater in Worcester. And it was a tremendous show. And he did a funny routine on the narrow difference between great and suck. And he said how it can kind of just change on a dime so carefully. And if you think about it, how many of you in here have had a day at the store where you've had no success all day? Take it even a step further, you've had a bad day where you've been told no or rejected, and at the very end of the day something good happens and you make a sale. That's the business, right? And so I think that those mindfulness techniques, when it comes to keeping your energy and emotion where it is, are essential. So there are 3 basic mindfulness techniques. One is reminders, simple, in your phone, sticky notes, things like that. 2 are inner voice mindfulness techniques, where you just tell yourself a phrase or a word to snap you out of a certain belief system. And then there's just the obvious ones, which are focus or breathing techniques. But I urge you all, those kinds of psychological tactics are pretty important. I really feel your pain. I mean, I've been in sales my entire career, and it's a grind. It really is a grind. So I just really want to encourage you. Have any of you in here seen the movie The Founder? Is that name well? Does anybody know what it's about? It's the story of Ray Kroc. Does everybody know who Ray Kroc is? Okay. It's a relatively recent movie. I encourage you all to watch it. It's a fascinating movie. And it's about Ray Kroc's experience in building McDonald's empire. And there's 2 really cool things in the movie that really, I think, mimic the life of a salesperson. One of them is the brothers McDonald's, who founded the company out in California. So Ray Kroc was this salesman who traveled the country. He was a milkshake maker salesman. And so he had hit all these dead ends, and he found these McDonald's brothers and helped them. He was really the inspiration for them to build the empire and expand. But as good as Ray Kroc was, and as driven, as passionate as he was, he couldn't do it by himself. And he hit 2 pretty big walls along the way. And one of them was the cost of freezing ice cream for McDonald's was so cost prohibitive it almost drove them out of business. So a woman came up with this milkshake powder that McDonald's used for several years. For those of you who still go to McDonald's, they're back to regular milkshakes again. But they were using milkshake powder, and so this allowed them to sustain the business. And then the second thing was the royalty deal that Ray Kroc signed with McDonald's was so bad that he just wasn't making money. And the way he overcame that royalty deal was to turn McDonald's into a real estate empire. So basically, when they were finding franchisees, they would lease the land to the franchisees and make money off the real estate. And then that's what essentially led to the McDonald's empire. The analogy I'm making in telling you this is, think of when you have challenges. I believe you have to use the resources available to you when you hit those stumbling blocks. I think it was Barry who was talking about, it was either Barry or Bernie mentioned about the resources and the people that work in Rotman's with you. Have any of you ever had a situation where you've had a customer and you haven't had the answers and you've had the courage to go to another employee on the floor to help you make the sale? Most people, I would imagine, have done that, right? Some smiles, maybe some have not. But here's what I want to tell you all. The word advocate. Don't you all want to turn when people walk into Rotman's, don't you want to turn them all into advocates? You want to turn them into advocates and define that two different ways. The first way you want to do it is you want to turn them into fans of Rotman's, people who are advocating for the store and referring other business. That you know. But you know how you really want to turn them into advocates? You want them to feel comfortable talking to you. That's tough. A lot of people don't want to talk. So how do you create that safe climate, that environment to make them want to talk to you? Or not make them, but encourage them to talk to you. And I think that's really important. So turning into advocates, turning your prospects into advocates is critical. Anybody ever heard of the Myers-Briggs personality test? Some of you in the room heard that? Myers-Briggs personality test is one of the most commonly used corporate measuring sticks to measure people's personalities. And so I recently took this test about 3 months ago for the first time. And so I'm reading the results of the test, and it gives you this huge printout. For those of you who haven't seen it before, it gives you all these different aspects of your personality, what you're good at, who you work best with, and so on and so forth. So I laughed. I said to the person who administered the test to me, I read the results and I said, now what? I said, now what? And she said, well, there's your results there. I said, okay, but I knew most of that stuff. Now what? And so I said, if now that I know I've confirmed my strengths and weaknesses and things I have to do, can someone teach me how to utilize those to my advantage? Because that's actually what would be relevant with the personality test. And I think when you look at all of your strengths and weaknesses in sales, the question really becomes, what do you do with those? For those of you who have particular strengths, how do you develop those strengths? For those of you who have weaknesses or areas of improvement, to be politically correct, how do you develop those? And when I think of why I'm here tonight, which is why Be Successful, I could never do what you do. You're all the experience you've had, you're all very good at what you do. You don't need me to come in here and tell you what to do. What I know is that the way you become more successful is not by working harder, by working smarter. And the way, to me, the way I work smarter is my core value of learning. I always want to learn. When Barbara introduced me tonight, she told you I do freelance sports writing for Associated Press. For those of you who are sports fans in here, not because I'm a sports fan, Bill Belichick is an absolute genius. Why? Not because the Patriots have won all their Super Bowls. He's a genius because he always wants that edge. He always wants to figure out that advantage, that edge, that he can learn to make himself and his team better. And that's how I am. I want to know, when I'm selling, I want to know that edge. I'll be very honest with you. I'm a very transparent person. When I asked Barbara on the phone before I came here, and I said, tell me a little bit about the sales challenges you have. Because I wanted the edge when I talk to you guys. I wanted to be able to connect with you, to know what you did. I'm not gonna lie. But getting that edge, figuring out what that edge is. How well do you know your product? How well do you know your competition? And most importantly, way more importantly than either of those two things, is how well can you engage with human beings? I was reading something that talked about the only thing retail salespeople should focus on is making a friend. People come to the store making a friend. I was like, yeah, I like that. I agree with that. I don't know how you all evaluate your own performance. Forget what Barbara says. Forget what the Rotmans say. For anybody, you don't do quotas. I get that. You're doing KPIs now. Wonderful. Forget about it. You need to evaluate your own performance. Forget what Barbara says. Kind of. But the truth of the matter is, how do you measure your performance? Because the success of a salesperson is what you take away. It's not just how many sales you make. So how do you measure your performance? To me, how do I measure my performance? Is how closely I pay attention to strategies and engagement approaches that I use with prospects and customers. They work. Where I go home at night and I say, wow, yeah, that approach I tried on that customer really worked today. That was effective. Funny thing is, how many people over the course of their lives, this is mostly a male question, so I'll just throw this out. How many males in the room have asked at some point in their life, what's your pickup line for women? Anybody been asked that at some point in their life?
Yeah.
Okay. I always get a kick out of that question because it always hits me when I think, what's your pickup line? I think, I don't have a pickup line because one line doesn't work on anybody, right? So in sales, if you think about it, if someone ever said to you, what's your go-to close or what's your go-to strategy, you should say, I don't have one. Because you should never have one. You should have a whole bunch. And so when I evaluate my own performance in sales, I think to myself, if I was told no, was I able to turn it around? If I was told no, was I able to reopen up the conversation? And one of the things I enjoy teaching and coaching so much is engagement. And you know something? I have to tell you all. You know the easiest way to engage people? The most easy thing in the world? Smile. How about active listening? I had a mentor once tell me, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately. Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So I think, when I think of when you're talking to people, things as obvious as projecting your voice, speaking clearly, smiling, maintaining eye contact, active listening, those things are so obvious. You guys, no one's sitting here going, oh good, thanks, I didn't know that. But the point isn't that you knew it or didn't know it. The point is that when people are talking, they don't want to work. They don't want to work. If people are listening, they want to hear you and know what you have to say and what's important about what you have to say. So I think when it comes to engagement, those things are very, very important. Okay. So let's talk about passion, the word passion. I don't know what the word passion means to you all, but to me, when it comes to being successful, you have to know what comes to work, what makes you come to work every day. Because it's not just a paycheck. Because if it is just a paycheck, then you're going to reach a level of complacency and a level of mediocrity. So when I come to work every day, my passion is I love what I do. If any of you here don't love what you do, maybe there's a lot of you in here that like what you do, but you don't love what you do. The question is, what's going to motivate you? Because I don't know about you all in this room, but I think salespeople are creatures of habit. And one of the dangers of being in sales is once you hit that level of money you want to make, whatever it is, it could be different for everybody, you take your foot off the gas. And the question is, when it comes to mindset and passion, what do you do? What tactic do you use to not let yourself get complacent? And it's something really worth thinking about because you're there at work anyway. You might as well work your ass off in a productive and happy, positive way if you're going to be there anyway. Does anybody know the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset? Are you all familiar with those terms? The difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset is, so I'll give you a very quick example. So fixed mindset, I'm not mechanically inclined at all. So I'm horrible at fixing things. So if I had a fixed mindset, no pun intended, if I had a fixed mindset, I would say, I'm horrible at fixing things. As opposed to, you know what, I'm not that good at fixing things, but I'm working on it. And as silly as it says, it's a mindset, right? So if you have a growth mindset, if you're struggling in sales and you're not having a good day, or you've had a few days in a row where you're not been able to engage people, geez, I'm not doing a good job engaging people right now. But that mindset piece, I'm going to keep coming back to it because that is what pushes me and that's what drives me every day. You have to, in some ways, as silly as it sounds, you have to fake out yourself at times. You have to kind of convince yourself at times that, hey, this isn't really it. And just stop yourself and recognize, no, I've been at Rotman's for all these years. I'm really good at what I do, but I'm just in a slump right now. And actually have that kind of recognition when that happens. And hopefully those things are happening few and far between. So, I know I don't have a ton of time yet, so I'm just going to tell you, we'll just cover one last thing. Okay, so I have this acronym that I'm going to leave you with tonight. And hopefully some of you, all of you, will use some of these things or all of these things. The acronym spells out value, right? Because we all want to have value, and we certainly want Rotman's to have value. So one of the V in value is visualizing yourself being successful. Every time you walk up to a customer and try to engage in a discussion, a relationship, visualize yourself being successful. The A in value is articulating what you think you need to be successful. And whether that's to a coworker, whether that's to Barbara, whether it's to anybody in the Rotman family, speak up for what you need and want. One of the things I tell kids is when they're in the back of the room, you know how, for those of you who have kids in here, imagine how many kids sit in the back of a high school classroom, middle school, or elementary for that matter, and teacher asks a question. Can you picture the kid that goes, like they want to raise their hand but they're not sure? Well, you guys are those kids if you're not speaking up for what you need and want to be successful. L, learn to never be satisfied. Core value, keep learning what's going to give you the edge, what we talked about. U, understanding the customer. Remember, it's about them and not you, right? So it's not about your needs. And by the way, one huge piece of advice, this is, from a mindfulness perspective, this is one of the best pieces of advice I could give you. I don't know, for those of you who haven't heard this before, match the energy, right? Understand their need. Customer comes in kind of quiet, mellow, you be kind of quiet, mellow, and vice versa. Who knows what a proper handshake is in here? Before I finish this. Guess what? You know one of the biggest misconceptions about handshake is when you ask that question to people of any age, they'll say, oh, it's a firm handshake. Nope. The right handshake is matching the other person's handshake. That's the right handshake. Now, a little firmer than them, so it's a soft handshake, but that's it. It's not a firm handshake automatically.
Trump handshake?
Well said, well said. And then the last one, and a very good way to finish tonight, is the word energize. Energize yourself by being successful. Energize yourself by doing the things that will make you successful, such as mindfulness techniques, such as articulating what you need, such as having that vision. So that's all I got. Thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.